Admiral Kekstar stood on the bridge of his massive warship and looked at the holographic display floating in front of him. The blue and green planet called Earth spun slowly in the center of the image. Small white clouds moved across its surface like cotton balls. It looked peaceful and beautiful, just like all the other worlds his fleet had conquered over the past 30 years. The alien commander was tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like old leather. His forearms moved quickly as he touched. Different controls on his command panel. 2 large black eyes studied every detail of the planet below. This was going to be easy, he thought. Just another primitive world that would fall within a few days. Behind him, dozens of his officers worked at their stations. They were all from the same race as Kekstar, the Zephyrians. Their species had been conquering other worlds for 3,000 years. They had the best weapons, the fastest ships, and the most advanced technology in this part of the galaxy. No one had ever been able to stop them. "Show me the report on these humans," Kekstar said to his intelligence officer. A new image appeared in front of them. It showed crude rockets that used chemical fuel to barely reach space. The humans had some nuclear weapons, but they were simple bombs that could only destroy cities. Their military was split into many different groups that often fought each other instead of working together. "They are rated as Category 4, sir," the intelligence officer said. "That means minimal threat. We should be able to complete standard pacification in less than 1 week." Kekstar nodded. Category 4 was the lowest threat level. His fleet had conquered Category 4 worlds many times before. The process was always the same. First, they would destroy the planet's major military bases from space. Then they would land troops to take control of the government buildings. Most species surrendered after seeing their armies destroyed. The few that kept fighting were usually defeated within days. "How many ships do we have?" Kekstar asked. 12 dreadnoughts, sir, plus 40 smaller support vessels. More than enough for a world like this. The admiral smiled, showing teeth that looked like sharp needles. 12 dreadnoughts could destroy entire continents if needed. Each ship was 3 miles long and carried enough firepower to level 100 cities. The humans had nothing that could even scratch their shields. "Begin the approach," he ordered. "All ships maintain battle formation. Prepare to eliminate their orbital installations first." The fleet moved forward through space like a pack of metal sharks. Their engines left trails of blue light behind them as they accelerated toward Earth. Kekstar had done this so many times that he could do it with his eyes closed. First, destroy their satellites and space stations. Then target their military bases. Finally, contact their leaders and demand surrender. But as they got closer to Earth, something strange happened. Instead of the usual panic and confusion that conquered worlds showed, Earth's radio signals became more organized. Military channels that had been quiet suddenly came alive with activity. Different human languages filled the airwaves as armies around the planet started talking to each other. "Sir," the communications officer said, "we are detecting unusual activity on the planet's surface. Multiple military forces are coordinating their movements." Kekstar frowned. This was not normal. Usually, primitive worlds became more disorganized when they saw an invasion fleet approaching. Their armies would scatter, and their leaders would try to hide, but the humans seemed to be doing the opposite. "Show me their military positions," he commanded. The holographic display changed to show Earth's surface. Red dots appeared everywhere, marking human military bases. But as they watched, the red dots began moving toward each other. Armies that had been spread out across continents were gathering together. Naval fleets that belonged to different countries were forming joint task forces. "This is impossible," said the intelligence officer. "According to our data, these humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. They should not be able to work together so quickly." Kekstar studied the display more carefully. He had conquered over 50 worlds in his career. He had never seen anything like this before. Most species needed weeks or months to organize a proper defense. The humans were doing it in hours. "Send out scout ships," he ordered. "I want to know exactly what they are planning." 6 small ships broke away from the main fleet and raced toward Earth. They were fast and nearly invisible to primitive sensors. Their job was to get close to the planet and gather detailed information about human defenses. But as the scout ships approached Earth's moon, something unexpected happened. Human ships came out to meet them. These were not the crude chemical rockets from the intelligence reports. These were sleek military vessels with fusion engines that burned bright white in the darkness of space. "How are they moving so fast?" Kextar demanded. Their technology should not allow for those speeds. The first battle was brief, but shocking. The human ships were smaller and less advanced than the Zephyrian scouts. But they fought with a desperation that surprised everyone on the bridge. When their weapons failed to damage the alien ships, the human pilots did something that no civilized species would ever consider. They rammed their ships directly into the scout vessels. 3 scout ships were destroyed in explosions of fire and metal. The remaining 3 retreated back to the main fleet, but they were damaged and barely functional. Kextar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. In 30 years of conquest, he had never seen pilots sacrifice themselves like that. Analysis, he demanded. The human ships were equipped with fusion drives that should not exist according to our intelligence, his science officer reported. Their weapons were primitive but used in ways we did not expect, and their pilots showed complete disregard for their own survival. Kextar's 4 arms tapped nervously on his command chair. Something was wrong with this conquest. The humans were not behaving like any species he had encountered before. They were supposed to be afraid. They were supposed to try to negotiate or surrender. Instead, they were fighting back with a fury that made no sense. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we are receiving a transmission from the planet." "Put it on the main screen." A human face appeared in front of them. It was a female with short gray hair and stern eyes. She wore a military uniform with many symbols on it. Behind her, other humans worked at computers and communication equipment. "This is General Patricia Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said. "You have entered our solar system without permission and attacked our ships. You have one chance to withdraw peacefully. If you do not leave immediately, we will consider your presence an act of war." The bridge fell silent. Kextar could not believe what he was hearing. This primitive species was threatening him. His fleet could destroy their entire planet in less than an hour, and they were giving him an ultimatum. "Respond," he ordered. "Tell them they have 1 day to surrender, unconditionally. If they refuse, we will begin bombardment of their major population centers." The human general listened to the translation device, then smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who was looking forward to a fight. "Message received and understood," she said. "We reject your terms. Earth will never surrender to alien invaders. If you want our world, you will have to take it from our dead hands." The transmission ended. Kextar stared at the empty screen for a long moment. In 3,000 years of Zephyrian conquest, no Category 4 species had ever refused to surrender. He was beginning to realize that the humans might not be Category 4 after all. "Prepare for bombardment," he ordered. "Target their largest cities first. Maybe when they see their population centers burning, they will come to their senses." But deep in his mind, a small voice whispered that this was going to be different from every other conquest. The humans had something that other species lacked. They had the willingness to fight even when victory seemed impossible. And that made them far more dangerous than their primitive technology suggested. The first bombardment began at dawn over the city of New York. Bright beams of energy shot down from the alien ships like deadly lightning. Buildings that had stood for over 100 years turned to dust in seconds. The famous skyline disappeared in clouds of smoke and fire. Admiral Kekstar watched from his command ship as similar scenes played out across the planet. London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, all the major human cities were burning. "This should break their spirit," said his intelligence officer. "No species can watch their population centers destroyed without surrendering." But the radio channels told a different story. Instead of pleas for mercy or offers to surrender, the human communications became more organized. Military frequencies buzzed with activity as commanders coordinated evacuation plans and emergency responses. Most surprising of all, civilian radio stations continued broadcasting messages of defiance and resistance. Dr. Sarah Chun crouched in the basement of what used to be Beijing University. Above her head, the ceiling shook as alien energy beams struck the city. Dust fell from the concrete like deadly snow. But she did not run or hide. Instead, she worked feverishly at a makeshift laboratory built from salvaged equipment. On the metal table in front of her lay pieces of an alien scout ship that had crashed during the first battle. The metal was unlike anything she had ever seen. It was stronger than steel, but lighter than aluminum. The circuits inside used technology that was centuries ahead of human science. But Sarah was not intimidated. She was excited. "Hand me the quantum scanner," she said to her assistant, a young graduate student named Liu Wei. "I think I understand how their power cells work." Liu Wei passed her the device with shaking hands. "Dr. Chun, should we not be evacuating? The city is under attack." Sarah looked up from her work. Her eyes burned with determination. "This is more important than our safety. If we can understand their technology, we can fight back. Every minute we spend here could save millions of lives." The alien power cell was small, no bigger than a human fist. But according to her readings, it contained enough energy to power a city for a month. Sarah carefully removed the outer casing with tools designed for microsurgery. Inside, she found crystalline structures that seemed to bend the laws of physics. "Incredible," she whispered. "They are using quantum tunneling to extract energy from vacuum fluctuations. This should be impossible with our current understanding of science." But Sarah Chun had spent her entire career studying impossible things. She had published papers on theoretical physics that other scientists said were too advanced to ever become reality. Now she was looking at proof that the impossible was real. And if the aliens could do it, so could humans. Meanwhile, in the ruins of what used to be London, former Special Forces Captain Marcus Reeves was learning that the aliens had made a crucial mistake. They had destroyed the cities, but they had not destroyed the people. Hidden bunkers that governments had built during the Cold War were now sheltering thousands of survivors. Underground tunnels connected these bunkers in a network that the aliens knew nothing about. Marcus stood in a command center 50 feet below the streets of London. Around him, military officers from different countries worked side by side. The old rivalries and political differences seemed meaningless now. They were all human, and they all faced the same enemy. "What is our status?" he asked Colonel Petrov, a Russian officer who had been his enemy just days before. "Better than expected," Petrov replied in accented English. "The bombardment destroyed the surface structures, but most of our critical infrastructure was already moved underground. We still have communication networks, weapons factories, and command centers operational." Marcus nodded. This was something the aliens had not planned for. Humans had been preparing for nuclear war for decades. They had built their most important facilities deep underground, protected by layers of concrete and steel. The alien bombardment was devastating to civilian areas, but the military infrastructure remained largely intact. "What about resistance activities?" Marcus asked. A French intelligence officer named Marie Dubois stepped forward. Excellent news, Captain. Civilian resistance groups are forming faster than we expected. The alien ground forces are facing constant harassment. Every patrol they send out gets ambushed. Every supply convoy disappears. Marcus smiled grimly. The aliens controlled the sky, but the ground was still human territory. And humans had thousands of years of experience in guerrilla warfare. They knew how to fight when they were outnumbered and outgunned. Back on the alien command ship, Admiral Kekstar was receiving reports that made no sense. According to his ground commanders, the humans were not behaving like a defeated species. Instead of cowering in ruins, they were launching coordinated attacks against Zephyrian positions. Worse, they seemed to be learning from each encounter. "Sir," said Commander Veltek, who was in charge of ground operations, "we have lost 3 more supply convoys in the past 12 hours. The humans are using tactics we have never encountered before." "Explain," Kekstar demanded. "They are not fighting like soldiers, sir. They fight like hunters. They study our patrol routes and attack at the exact moment when we are most vulnerable. They use explosives made from civilian chemicals. They turn farming equipment into weapons. Most disturbing of all, they seem to have no fear of death." Kekstar studied the tactical reports on his holographic display. Red marks showed the locations of attacks on Zephyrian forces. There were hundreds of them, scattered across the planet. Each attack was small, but together they were bleeding his army dry. "What about our interrogation of prisoners?" he asked. Commander Veltek shifted uncomfortably. "That is another problem, sir. The humans we capture refuse to provide information. We have used the same interrogation techniques that worked on every other species. But the humans either remain silent or give us false information that leads our patrols into traps." This was unprecedented. The Zephyrian mind probe technology had never failed before. It could break the will of any sentient being within hours. But somehow the humans were resisting. Their minds seemed to have natural defenses that other species lacked. Sarah Chun had made her first breakthrough 3 weeks into the invasion. Working with salvaged alien technology and equipment from the university's physics lab, she had managed to create a crude but functional energy weapon. It was bulky and could only fire a few shots before the power cell burned out, but it could penetrate alien armor. "Test it again," she told Liu Wei as they prepared for another experiment. The young man aimed the device at a piece of alien hull plating they had recovered. He pulled the trigger, and a beam of blue energy shot out. The metal that had seemed indestructible began to glow and then melted like ice under a blowtorch. "It works," Liu Wei said in amazement. "We can hurt them." But Sarah was already thinking bigger. This is just the beginning. If we can reverse engineer their energy weapons, we can also understand their shields, their engines, their communications. We can take everything they have and make it better. Other scientists around the world were having similar breakthroughs. In the hidden laboratories beneath Moscow, physicists were decoding alien computer systems. In underground facilities in the United States, engineers were studying crashed alien vehicles. In makeshift workshops across Europe, mechanics were learning to repair and modify alien equipment. The resistance was not just fighting back, it was learning. Every alien weapon that was captured became a prototype for human versions. Every piece of alien technology became a lesson in advanced science. The humans were not just adapting to the invasion. They were evolving. Marcus Reeves received the first human-made energy weapon 6 weeks after the invasion began. It had been smuggled through the underground tunnels by a network of civilians who risked their lives to move supplies and information. The weapon was crude compared to alien technology, but it was unmistakably human-made. Where did this come from? He asked the courier, a teenage girl who had volunteered to carry the weapon across enemy territory. "Dr. Chun's team in Beijing," she replied. They say they can make more if we can get them the right materials. Marcus held the weapon in his hands and felt something he had not felt since the invasion began. Hope. The aliens had superior technology, but humans had something more valuable. They had the ability to learn and adapt. They had the refusal to give up even when defeat seemed certain. "Get word to all resistance cells," he told his communication officer. "Tell them we are no longer just fighting to survive. We are fighting to win." Admiral Kextar received the news of the first alien casualty from a human energy weapon with growing alarm. His intelligence reports had said the humans were primitive, unable to understand advanced technology. But somehow they had reverse-engineered Zephyrian weapons in just 6 weeks. How is this possible? He demanded from his science advisor. "Unknown, sir. Our analysis suggests that human neural patterns are different from any species we have encountered. They seem to have an unusual capacity for rapid learning and technological adaptation." Kextar stared at the tactical display showing the growing human resistance. What had begun as a simple conquest was turning into something far more complex and dangerous. The humans were not just. Captain Elena Vasquez floated in the cold darkness of space, watching the alien dreadnought through her helmet display. The massive ship hung above Earth like a metal mountain, its hull gleaming with strange lights. 6 months ago she had been commanding a submarine in the Pacific Ocean. Now she was about to attempt something that every military expert said was impossible. "Remember," she whispered into her radio, "we only get one chance at this. If we fail, there won't be anyone left to try again." Behind her, 19 other humans drifted in the darkness. They were miners, engineers, soldiers, and scientists. They came from different countries and spoke different languages, but they all shared the same desperate hope. They were going to capture an alien warship. The plan had seemed crazy when Dr. Chun first proposed it 3 months earlier. The Resistance had been studying alien technology, but they needed more than just fragments and pieces. They needed an intact ship with all its systems working. The only way to get one was to take it by force. Elena had volunteered to lead the mission because she understood ships better than anyone else in the Resistance. She had spent 15 years in the Navy, learning how vessels worked and how to fight them. But this was different from anything she had ever attempted before. The boarding party was riding in modified cargo containers that had been launched from Earth using converted mining rockets. The containers were crude and barely spaceworthy, but they were small enough to avoid alien sensors. Each container held supplies, weapons, and most importantly, nuclear charges powerful enough to crack open the alien hull. "Target acquired," said Viktor Petrov, a Russian engineer who had helped design the mission. "The docking bay is on the lower section, just like Dr. Chen predicted." Elena checked her equipment one last time. She carried a human-made energy weapon. Based on alien technology, emergency oxygen supplies, and enough explosives to level a city block. The other team members were similarly equipped. If they succeeded, they would have an alien dreadnought. If they failed, they would all be dead within minutes. "Move out," Elena commanded. The 20 containers fired their small rocket engines and began drifting toward the alien ship. To any observer, they would look like space debris or meteor fragments. The aliens had become careless about small objects after months of fighting human resistance. They were about to learn why that was a mistake. The first container reached the alien hull and attached itself with magnetic clamps. Viktor Petrov armed the nuclear charge and moved to a safe distance. The explosion was small but precisely targeted, creating a hole just large enough for humans to enter. Atmosphere rushed out of the ship in a cloud of frozen vapor, but the breach was too small to cause serious damage. Elena was the first through the hole. She found herself in a maintenance corridor filled with pipes and alien machinery. The air was thick and humid, with a strange smell like burning copper. Gravity was stronger than on Earth, making every movement feel sluggish and difficult. "We're in," she reported. No immediate resistance. Beginning advance to the command center. The alien ship was huge, much larger than it appeared from the outside. The corridors stretched for hundreds of meters in every direction. Everything was built for creatures larger than humans, with ceilings that were too high and doorways that were too wide. But this worked to their advantage. The humans could move through spaces that the aliens would find cramped and difficult. They encountered their first alien crew member near the central lift system. The creature was tall and thin with gray skin and 4 arms. It was carrying some kind of tablet device and seemed to be doing routine maintenance work. When it saw the humans, it reached for an alarm button. Elena shot it with her energy weapon before it could complete the movement. The alien collapsed without making a sound. She felt a moment of guilt. The creature had not been threatening them directly. But this was war, and hesitation could get her entire team killed. "Contact eliminated," she reported. Continuing to objective. The command center was located at the heart of the ship, protected by multiple layers of security doors and defensive systems. But the humans had studied captured alien technology for months. They knew how the security systems worked and how to bypass them. More importantly, they had brought tools that the aliens never expected to see used against them. Dr. Chun had discovered that alien security systems were designed to keep other aliens out. They looked for specific biological signatures and neural patterns that only Zephyrians possessed. But humans were so different that the systems did not recognize them as a threat. The doors opened automatically when the boarding party approached. "This is too easy," muttered James Morrison, a demolitions expert from Australia. "They have to know we're here by now." Elena nodded grimly. The aliens were probably preparing a counterattack, but they had come too far to turn back now. The command center was just ahead, beyond one final set of security doors. The bridge of the alien ship was larger than a football field. Holographic displays floated in the air above hundreds of control stations. Alien crew members worked at their posts, completely unaware that humans had penetrated their ship. They had been so confident in their technology that they had not even POVED guards. "Surrender and you will not be harmed," Elena announced in English. Knowing that the aliens' translation devices would convert her words, the bridge crew turned toward the humans, with expressions of shock and disbelief. Some reached for weapons, but they moved too slowly. The boarding party had trained for this moment for months. They knew exactly where each alien would be standing and how to neutralize them quickly. The battle for the bridge lasted less than 3 minutes. When it was over, 20 alien crew members lay unconscious on the floor, stunned by human weapons set to non-lethal settings. Elena had insisted on taking prisoners rather than killing unnecessarily. These aliens might have valuable information about their technology and military plans. "Bridge secured," she reported. "Beginning system access procedures." Viktor Petrov moved to the main command console and connected a human-built interface device. Dr. Chun had designed it specifically to hack into alien computer systems. The device began scanning through millions of files and data streams, looking for information about ship operations and navigation systems. "Got it," Victor announced. "I have access to their main computer." Downloading star charts, fleet positions, and technical specifications. But Elena was already thinking about the next phase of the mission. They had captured the ship, but they still needed to get it back to Earth, and they needed to do it before the other alien ships realized what had happened. "Can you fly this thing?" she asked Victor. The Russian engineer studied the control systems with growing excitement. "Yes, I think so. The interface is different from human ships, but the basic principles are the same. Navigation, propulsion, life support, it's all here." Elena activated her communication system and sent a coded message back to Earth. "Package secured. Beginning extraction in 30 minutes. The response came back immediately from Marcus Reeves, who was coordinating the mission from his command bunker. Confirmed. All resistance cells have been notified. Prepare for immediate departure. Flying the alien ship was easier than Alina had expected. The controls were intuitive, designed for efficiency rather than complexity. The fusion engines responded smoothly to input commands. Most importantly, the other alien ships in the fleet seemed to assume that the captured dreadnought was simply changing position for tactical reasons. They don't know, Elena realized. They think we're one of them. The flight back to Earth took 12 hours. During that time, Victor and his team explored every section of the ship, downloading technical data and studying alien equipment. They found weapons that could destroy entire cities, defensive shields that could stop nuclear missiles, and most importantly, manufacturing equipment that could produce alien technology. Dr. Chun was waiting in the Australian desert when the captured ship landed. She had spent months preparing for this moment, assembling teams of scientists and engineers who could study the vessel in detail. But even she was amazed by what the boarding party had accomplished. "You actually did it," she said as Alina climbed down from the ship. "You captured an intact alien dreadnought." Elena looked back at the massive vessel sitting in the red dirt of the outback. It looked impossible, a piece of advanced alien technology in the middle of the Australian wilderness. But it was real, and it was now under human control. "This changes everything," Dr. Chun continued. "With an intact ship, we can reverse engineer their most advanced systems. We can learn how their weapons work, how their shields operate, how their faster-than-light drives function. Most importantly, we can find out where their other ships are located." Within days, teams of human scientists were crawling over every inch of the captured ship. They studied its weapons systems, analyzed its computer cores, and reverse-engineered its most advanced technology. The knowledge they gained was beyond anything they had hoped for. But the most important discovery came from the ship's navigation. Computer. Victor found star charts showing the locations of alien supply bases throughout the solar system. He found communication logs revealing their military plans and defensive positions. Most crucially, 2 years after the first alien ships appeared in Earth's sky, the hidden asteroid belt shipyard hummed with activity that would have seemed impossible just months before. Dr. Sarah Chun floated through the zero-gravity workshop, watching human engineers and alien refugees work side by side on projects that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. The captured Zephyrian dreadnought had provided more than just technology. It had given humanity something far more valuable, proof that the aliens could be beaten. Word of the capture had spread throughout the galaxy, reaching other species that had been enslaved by the Confederation for centuries. Now ships arrived weekly, carrying volunteers who wanted to join the human resistance. Dr. Chun called out Zixara, a reptilian creature whose people had been conquered 50 years earlier. "The new weapon design is ready for testing." Sarah pushed off from a wall and glided over to examine the device. It looked like a human rifle, but the energy core glowed with the same blue light as alien technology. The weapon was smaller and lighter than the original Zephyrian design, but according to the computer models, it was also more powerful. "How did you improve the efficiency?" Sarah asked. Zixara's scaled face showed what might have been a smile. "Human mathematics," she said. "Your species approaches physics differently than any race we have encountered. Where we see limitations, you see possibilities." This had become a common theme in the resistance workshops. Human scientists did not just copy alien technology. They improved it. They found ways to make energy weapons more efficient, shields more durable, and engines faster. The captured alien equipment was just a starting point for human innovation. On the other side of the asteroid facility, General Harrison Wu stood before a holographic display showing 17 different star systems. Each system contained human forces conducting simultaneous operations against Confederation targets. What had begun as a desperate fight for Earth's survival had evolved into a galaxy-wide rebellion. "Status report," Wu commanded. Colonel Martinez, his chief of staff, activated different sections of the display. "Operation Thunderstrike is proceeding ahead of schedule. Our forces have successfully captured the supply depot at Wolf 359. The Tau Ceti raid destroyed 3 Confederation cruisers with minimal losses, and the Proxima Centauri team has established a permanent base in the outer asteroid belt." Wu nodded with satisfaction. Each victory brought them closer to their ultimate goal, not just Earth's freedom, but the liberation of every enslaved species in the galaxy. The humans had learned that freedom was not something you could have while others remained in chains. "What about our new allies?" Wu asked. "Excellent progress, sir. The Altarians have provided us with detailed intelligence about Confederation fleet movements. The Kepler refugees have shared their expertise in faster-than-light communication. And the former vegan prisoners have given us access to their advanced medical technology. This was perhaps humanity's greatest achievement, the ability to unite different species against a common enemy. Where the Confederation ruled through fear and division, humans led through cooperation and shared purpose. Every liberated world became a source of new allies, new technology, and new hope. Back on Earth, in the deep underground command center beneath what used to be Geneva, Marcus Reeves coordinated the most ambitious military operation in human history. The resistance had grown from a handful of survivors hiding in bunkers to a professional military force operating across dozens of star systems. But Marcus had never forgotten the lessons learned during those first desperate months. "Remember," he told his staff officers, "we fight differently than they do. We don't win through superior firepower or advanced technology. We win because we refuse to give up, and because we turn every disadvantage into an opportunity." The newest intelligence reports showed that the Confederation was finally taking the human threat seriously. They had recalled fleets from across their empire to deal with the rebellion. Admiral Kekstar had been replaced by Fleet Commander Zarthek, a military genius who had never lost a campaign in over 100 years of service. "Sir," said Intelligence Officer Kim Nakamura, "we have received the psychological profiles of captured Confederation personnel. The results are disturbing." Marcus studied the data on his personal display. The alien prisoners had been interrogated using the same nonviolent techniques that Dr. Chun's team had developed for studying their technology. But what the humans discovered was more frightening than any weapon. "They genuinely cannot understand why we fight," Marcus said slowly. "According to these interviews, the concept of preferring death to slavery is completely alien to them. They literally cannot comprehend a species that would rather die than surrender." This explained much about the Confederation's military doctrine. They had conquered hundreds of worlds using the same basic strategy: demonstrate overwhelming superiority, offer terms for surrender, then rule through fear of punishment. It worked because every species they had encountered valued survival above freedom. But humans were different. They had spent their entire history fighting wars where surrender meant death or slavery. They had developed cultures that celebrated heroes who died rather than submit to tyranny. The Confederation had stumbled upon the one species in the galaxy that would rather burn down the universe than live under alien rule. "Sir," Lieutenant Johnson interrupted, "we have incoming transmission from the Titan operation." The holographic display changed to show Captain Elena Vasquez, now commanding a small fleet of captured and modified alien ships. She looked tired but determined, floating in the zero-gravity command center of her flagship. Behind her, human and alien crew members worked at stations that had been redesigned to accommodate multiple species. General Reeves, Elena reported. Operation Prometheus is complete. We have successfully destroyed the Confederation's main supply depot in the Saturn system. 23 enemy ships eliminated, with minimal casualties on our side. Marcus allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The supply depot had been feeding the alien occupation force for 2 years. Its destruction would force them to rely on supplies shipped from their home territories, extending their supply lines and making them vulnerable to attack. Excellent work, Captain. What are your recommendations for the next phase? Elena's expression became serious. Sir, I believe we are ready for the final operation. Our intelligence indicates that Fleet Commander Zarthik is massing his forces for a decisive assault on Earth. If we are going to act, it must be now. The final operation was humanity's most desperate gamble yet. Instead of waiting for the Confederation to attack Earth again, they would take the fight directly to the enemy's home system. It was exactly the kind of impossible mission that no rational species would attempt, which was exactly why it might work. Dr. Chun had spent months developing the technology that would make the operation possible. Using a combination of human innovation and captured alien equipment, her team had created something that had never existed before, a weapon capable of destroying an entire planet. I call it the Freedom Device, she explained to the assembled resistance leaders. It uses a modified alien fusion core to create a cascade reaction in a planet's core. The target world becomes uninhabitable within hours. The weapon represented everything that made humans different from other species. Number. Other race would have developed something so destructive. No other military would have considered using it against an enemy homeworld. But humans understood that sometimes you had to be willing to destroy everything in order to save anything. General Wu studied the tactical projections with growing excitement. If we can threaten their homeworld, we force them to choose between continuing the occupation of Earth and protecting their own population. It's the same choice they gave us 2 years ago. But Marcus Reeves understood the deeper implications. It's more than that, he said quietly. We're showing the entire galaxy that no species is safe from retaliation if they choose to become conquerors. We're changing the rules of war forever. The final briefing took place in the main assembly hall of the asteroid base. Representatives from dozens of liberated worlds gathered to hear humanity's plan for ending the war. The diversity was stunning. Creatures of every size, shape, and color imaginable, all united by their hatred of Confederation tyranny. 2 years ago, Marcus told the assembled crowd, the Confederation made a simple miscalculation. They thought that humans were just another primitive species that could be easily conquered. They were wrong. He activated the holographic display, showing the planned assault on the Confederation homeworld. The operation would require every ship, every weapon, and every ally that the Resistance had managed to gather. It was an all-or-nothing gamble that would either end the war or result in humanity's complete destruction. We have learned to fight not just for our own survival, but for the freedom of every sentient being in the galaxy, Marcus continued. Today, we take that fight to the source. Today, we show the Confederation what happens when you wage war against humanity. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Voices in dozens of languages shouted approval and support. Creatures who had never seen Earth pledged their lives to the human cause. The hall erupted in cheers. Fleet Commander Zarthek stood in the command center of his flagship as it approached Earth for what he intended to be the final battle of the war. Behind him, the largest military force in Confederation history stretched across space like a metal cloud. 500 warships, each one capable of destroying entire fleets. It was more firepower than had ever been assembled in one place. Begin planetary bombardment, he commanded. I want every human city reduced to ash within 6 hours. But as the massive fleet moved into attack position, something unexpected appeared on their sensors. Human ships were rising from Earth's surface. Not the crude converted vessels they had been using, but sleek warships that looked disturbingly familiar. They were based on Confederation designs, but somehow improved and more advanced. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we are detecting over 300 enemy vessels. Their energy signatures suggest technology equal to or superior to our own." Zarthik studied the display with growing unease. This was not the desperate last stand of a dying species. This was a coordinated military response from an enemy that had somehow matched Confederation technology in just 2 years. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. The main screen activated to show a human face that Zarthek recognized from intelligence reports. Admiral Sarah Chun, the scientist who had become one of humanity's military leaders. Behind her, the bridge of her ship showed humans and aliens working together at control stations. "Fleet Commander Zarthik," Sarah said calmly, "you have one opportunity to withdraw your forces and leave this system peacefully. If you refuse, we will consider your presence an act of war against the Free Galactic Alliance." The Free Galactic Alliance. Zarthik had heard reports of this organization, but he had dismissed it as human propaganda. Now he was seeing proof that dozens of formerly enslaved species had united under human leadership. The implications were staggering. "You are outnumbered nearly 2 to 1, Zarthik replied. "Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." Sarah's expression did not change. "You still don't understand, do you? We're not here to survive this battle. We're here to end this war. And we're willing to pay any price necessary to ensure that no other world suffers what Earth has suffered." The transmission ended, and both fleets prepared for the largest space battle in recorded history. But thousands of light years away, another drama was unfolding that would determine the true outcome of the war. Captain Elena Vasquez commanded a strike force of 50 ships approaching the Confederation homeworld of Zephyr Prime. Her fleet was small compared to the armadas clashing near Earth, but her mission was far more important. She carried Dr. Chun's freedom device, the weapon that could destroy an entire planet. "Target in sight," reported her tactical officer. "Zephyr Prime, population 12 billion. Elena stared at the green and blue world on her display. It looked peaceful and beautiful, much like Earth had looked before the war began. Somewhere on that planet were families, children, civilians who had never harmed anyone. But Elena had learned that war forced people to make impossible choices. "Sir," her communications officer interrupted, "we are receiving a transmission from the planet's surface." The screen showed an elderly Zephyrian female wearing ornate robes that marked her as a member of the ruling council. Her 4 arms gestured frantically as she spoke. "Human Commander, we know why you have come. We are prepared to discuss terms for ending this conflict." Elena felt a moment of hope. If the Confederation leadership was ready to negotiate, perhaps the freedom device would not be necessary. Perhaps billions of lives could be saved. "What terms do you offer?" Elena asked. "Complete withdrawal from the Sol system. Recognition of Earth as an independent world. Reparations for the damage caused during our occupation. These are generous terms for a species that dared to resist the Confederation." Elena almost laughed at the absurdity. Even now, facing the potential destruction of their homeworld, the Confederation leaders thought they were being generous by offering to stop their illegal invasion. "Unacceptable," Elena replied. "Our terms are simple. Complete dissolution of the Confederation, independence for every enslaved world, and war crimes trials for all military leaders involved in genocide and planetary bombardment." The Zephyrian counselor's expression showed shock and outrage. "Impossible. The Confederation has ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. You cannot simply demand that we abandon our entire civilization." "Watch us," Elena said, and cut the transmission. Back at Earth, the space battle had begun with an intensity that neither side had expected. Human ships fought with desperate courage, knowing that this was humanity's last chance for freedom. But the Confederation fleet was larger and more experienced. Slowly, inevitably, the human forces were being pushed back. Admiral Sarah Chun watched from her command ship as another human vessel exploded in a ball of fire. Her fleet was taking heavy casualties, but they were inflicting damage on the enemy. As well, more importantly, they were buying time for Elena's mission to succeed. "Status report," she demanded. "We have lost 47 ships," her tactical officer reported. "Enemy losses are estimated at 32 vessels. But sir, at this rate we will be overwhelmed within 3 hours." Sarah nodded grimly. She had known from the beginning that this battle was not about winning through superior firepower. It was about holding on long enough for the Confederation to receive news from their homeworld. "All ships, begin Phase 2, she ordered. "Implement ramming protocols." What followed defied every rule of civilized warfare. Human ships that had lost their weapon systems deliberately crashed into Confederation vessels. Pilots with damaged fighters aimed their craft at enemy bridges and detonated their remaining explosives. It was a tactic so brutal and desperate that no other species had ever used it on such a scale. The psychological effect on the Confederation fleet was devastating. They had trained for thousands of years to fight opponents who valued their own survival. They had no defense against enemies who treated their own lives as weapons to be expended for victory. Fleet Commander Zarthek watched in horror as his carefully planned battle descended into chaos. His ships were designed for long-range combat between civilized opponents. They were not prepared for enemies who turned every defeat into a suicide attack. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "urgent message from Zephyr Prime." The transmission was garbled and filled with static, but the message was clear. A human fleet was in orbit around the Confederation homeworld. They possessed a weapon capable of destroying the planet, and they were demanding complete surrender within 1 hour. Zarthik felt something he had never experienced in his long military career: true fear. Not fear of death or defeat, but fear of what these humans were capable of doing. They had proven willing to sacrifice everything for their cause. Now they were threatening to destroy an entire world to achieve victory. "Open a channel to the human admiral," he ordered. Sarah Chun's face appeared on his screen, showing the strain of hours of desperate combat. Behind her, damage control teams worked to repair systems damaged in the ongoing battle. "Admiral Chun," Zarthik said, "I am authorized to discuss terms for ending this conflict." "I'm listening," Sarah replied. "Immediate ceasefire. Withdrawal of all Confederation forces from human territory. Recognition of Earth's independence." "These are the best terms I can offer." Sarah shook her head. "Not good enough. We want complete surrender, dissolution of the Confederation military, independence for every enslaved world, and trials for war." "Criminals, you ask for the impossible," Zarthik protested. "The Confederation spans thousands of worlds. We cannot simply abandon our entire civilization." "Then you leave us no choice," Sarah said. "Captain Vasquez, you are authorized to proceed with Operation Freedom." Light years away, Elena Vasquez received the authorization she had been dreading. She looked around the bridge of her ship at the faces of her crew. They all understood what they were about to do. They were about to become the destroyers of a world. "Arm the Freedom device," Elena ordered. The weapon powered up with a sound like distant thunder. On her display, targeting systems locked onto the core of Zephyr Prime. In 30 minutes, the reaction would begin. In 6 hours, the planet would be uninhabitable. 12 billion beings would be dead. But before Elena could give the final order, her communications officer interrupted. "Sir, incoming transmission from Fleet Commander Zarthik." The alien commander appeared on screen, his expression showing defeat and resignation. "Stop," he said simply. "We surrender unconditionally." Elena felt relief wash over her like a physical force. "Repeat that, Fleet Commander. The Confederation Council has voted for complete surrender. We will comply with all human demands. Please do not destroy our world." Elena looked at the Freedom device display, her finger hovering over the abort button. With one command, she could save 12 billion lives. With another, she could end this war forever by demonstrating that humanity would stop at nothing to achieve victory. She pressed the abort button. "Freedom device deactivated," she announced. "All Confederation forces are ordered to stand down immediately and prepare for occupation by Free Galactic Alliance peacekeeping forces." The war was over. But as Elena stared at the planet she had almost